We on? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hi, everybody. Oh, jeez. Leslie Total Plaza here, Zazoo Plazz. I made it out to the woods finally. How's that? Better like this? Like this or like this? I'm experimenting with different ways. How's this? Is that better? Okay, all you rude commenters out there, get your head out of the gutter. If you're gonna post something nice. Zazoo Plazz, out in the woods, trying different things here. But this is my sacred space. So don't defile my sacred space by putting anything nasty in the comments. No. Anyway, just thought I'd get that out of the way. And this is comedy. This is humor, kids. All right? So this is all a big experiment. Zazoo Plazz report. May 28th, 2023. See? You keep moving the light around till you find, the best place to where it does the most good. There we go. Is that better? And every week I get a little closer. Like Sheryl Crow, every day is a winding road. Every day I get a little bit closer. If you think of it that way, look at this beautiful tree. Remember back a few months ago, it was just bare limbs, bare bones. Now it's a beautiful tree. Look at that. Angry tree. Hey, how are you doing? See? So that's what I'm talking about. So, May 28th, Memorial Day weekend. And I was thinking, if you look at the astrological chart, I'll just get this out of the way. The 8th house, okay, so it's a circle, right? And there's 12 little pieces of pie, little subdivisions within the circle, right? If you cut a circle in half this way and then crossways, and then you can have 12 little pieces of pie, right? Or pizza. And if you look at it, put a number starting over here at 9 o'clock. Start with number 1, work all your way back around to number 12, right? So, my second house and my 8th house. So, when you're born, the house that the sun is rising in is your first house, right? So that's like yourself, your first, me in the world. And your second house is the stuff that you think is valuable, like, oh, these are my toys. Somebody tries to take your toy, it's like, no, that's my toy. Give it back, right? So if you think about it, going around the circle, and there are, of course, astrologers out there who are excellent at explaining this. But I call this astrology humor because I do it in my own little quirky way. And so there's a sign attached, a zodiac sign attached to each one of those houses. As you go, as you go through your life, and as you go through each year, and even, the moon goes around throughout the month. So you see things evolve and change, right? That's why you don't get stuck on anyone, oh, geez, today was, tomorrow could be, yay. So then you would miss it, if you're still stuck in, Anyway, my second house is in Scorpio, because that's where my sun is. And then across the pie, across the chart, is my 8th house. The 8th house has to do with, all those dark stuff. I talked about this before. Dark stuff nobody wants to talk about. So there's a lot of action in there right now. There's like, I don't know, Uranus, lightning strikes, and I don't know, there's a bunch of other planets in there causing trouble. And then the sun is moving into Gemini, which is the twins, right? So Gemini is like the mind, right? But sort of like the monkey mind. And all that stuff. So all that stuff in the 8th house is opposing my sun and my Neptune. So it kind of means, like, it's just, like this. You're like throwing it back and forth. And opposition is like, you're on the teeter-totter, right? When you were a kid, right? We were kids, we had those teeter-totters. And you go down, and then the other person goes up, and then you go up, and the other person goes down, right? But the thing is, you know, you got to take turns, right? Otherwise, you would just be stuck. You'd both be stuck in the middle, and you would, what's the point, right? So you kind of have to. The whole point of the game is just to, not stay in one place, but balance. One person bounces off, and then you bounce off, and then, and that's the fun of it, right? That's where you get your exercise, your legs. So, if when you're dealing with this kind of thing in astrology, it's like, I want this, but there's this person over here who wants to, and then, so you got this scenario where if you're trying to get somewhere with somebody, and you're running. Well, when my husband and I got married years ago, the priest who said our wedding, he talked, and we chose him for this sermon for this purpose. He talked about partnership or marriage being like a three-legged race, where you got one leg in common tied, right, and the other one is free, and the object of the game is to get to the finish line, right? But you only got 3 legs to work with. So you got one leg that's got to be free, right? And then you got the one that's tied. You have to figure out how to, get that one leg in common to move, as one. And, if you're tied to somebody who just, you're flat on the ground, and all they can do is, all you can do is blame each other for why you're sitting there on the ground. Just take the damn tie off and just start over. Find another partner to run the race with, because you're not gonna go. All those other people are passing you by, right? You can run the race. I'd be better off running that race by myself than tied to somebody who's gonna sit there and try to, so whose fault it is that we're tied together, right? I've got my strengths and weaknesses. The other person has theirs, right? So this is a 2-year. 2 is all about partnership and sharing and working together. So, you got to get rid of, and I'm not saying it has to be a person, and I'm not saying I'm talking about anybody in particular, but whatever you're tied to that isn't wanting to go forward, right? You gotta mix it up. You gotta, just. So, I and I always go to the readings, and they never disappoint me today. It's Pentecost Sunday, and I'm thinking, in terms of the sign Gemini, where the sun is very simple. The sun is in the early degrees of Gemini. Gemini is the twins. There's 2 ways of looking at things. Two of everything, right? The Pentecost is, God's Spirit that came down. They're talking about endurance, hope. You hope. You're in the race, right? You're trying to go the long term, and you don't. Stuff comes up along the way that you don't know what's going to come up. You can't see it, but you hope. And you have faith that it's all for your best, right? So you keep running the race. But if you're running the race and you're dragging the other person, that's not good. You're going to run out of energy, right? So whatever it is that you're dragging along with you is, your car, your house, your expectations, your, old job, anywhere you're tolerated. And not appreciated, and there are those who will tell you, well, you have to run like those people. See how well they run the race? You should be like that. You should be like her. Like, why can't you be? Who heard this as a kid, right? Why can't you be like so and so? She she likes to do this. She doesn't talk back like you. she's good. She goes along and she's blah blah. My water gun. Sorry, but you know, so what? Maybe that person is meant to be that way, or not, you know, or maybe that person's mother is going, look at that girl, look at that Leslie, she's, you know, um, you know, so we all have our stuff that we carry, right? We're told, we're compared. Why can't you be, you know, do more of this and less of that? Well, that could be the thing you're meant to do. The very thing that the people that you have been traveling with have been telling you is a waste of time, and they don't get it. But that's your thing, right? That's what you do. That's what you're aching to do. Go out to the woods at midnight and talk to the trees and the skunks and stuff, you know? That's the thing. All right, I'm babbling. Like the Tower of Babel. Everybody was speaking the same language, right? Oh, we're going to be great. We're all speaking the same language. Everybody's the same. We're going to build this city. Da 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 da. I'm going to put that as a bonus song for this week. We built this city. That's a good one. We built this city on rock and roll. Anyway, so God said, well, you know, that's not so good. Because Gemini is all about, you know, like for me, you know, travel has always been a great thing for me. I went to Spain during Gemini season when I was a junior, well, going into my junior year in college, 85. And it was great. I saw things I had never seen before, right? This was great for me. And, you know, and I'm a communicator. I talk to people. I went dancing in the disco in Madrid, Barcelona. I ate some different kind of food. And you know, maybe I don't want to eat again. Eel, not so much. Tortilla. You know, I drank real sangria. I took pictures. I hung out with kids that I never would have met otherwise. We had a great group, you know, and then we got back home and everybody went their separate ways, and I want a reunion. I still, you know, I kept all my notes. And I did. I was, a couple years ago, I did get back in touch with this one girl. We were, you know, she was probably the one I was the closest to. And I'll write a story about her on the trip, because the two of us grew up close, you know, near each other. And we did get together again. I had them down to our beach house, and one of the other girls on the trip, and a couple of guys, and we had and our professor, Professora Janet. She's passed now, but she was a great mentor to all of us. Wonderful Spanish teacher up at UConn, and she organized the whole thing. She, you know, she placed us with families, and you know, around Madrid. And it was genius how she, you know, she knew where we would thrive, where to place each of us, and that's so important. Looking back, you know, I wouldn't have done anything differently, because even though she had mostly just met all of us, it's like we were, I don't know, it's like we knew each other, you know. It's like we all got along so well, so different, all of us being so very different, but yet we had that common experience, didn't we? So looking at, you know, the world through each other's eyes, right? That's the valuable stuff. If everybody was like me, you know, coming from the same school, speaking, that would be boring. You know, what would we have to learn? How would we enrich ourselves? If everybody spoke English everywhere, you know? But so that's the beauty of Gemini is, you know, all the different languages, the confusion. It's good. And that's the chaos. You know, when we're cut off, you know, from that experience of connection, you know, it's like we're we're in the barren desert or something. You're walking around and there's just, everything's dead, you know? I mean, you could be in a, you know, in a suburban environment and feel that way. And feel that everything is, all you see is dust around you, you know? Or flies. You know, you could be in a mansion and feel like that. Because if you're cut off from that which gives you life, you know, from the spirit that flows through you, and if you're in the wrong environment, you're gonna be thirsting. You know, you might have enough to eat and drink and all that, but your spirit is thirsty. You're thirsting for something that you can't see. You know, it's invisible. And then, so I think that's kind of, you know, people get hung up on the metaphors. That's just one person's way of writing it. It's just the way God flowed through. Like you know, when you have a clear straw, you're drinking, right? You know, it's clear. So it's going to look like whatever is funneling through there, right? It's so, in other words, it might be the same, you know, energy coming down, but each person is like a multicolored straw, like a kaleidoscope. The light hits it in very different ways. Let's see, but the whole of it put together, you know, it's beautiful, right? But each one of us reflects the light from God, from Source, in a different way. Right? It's like a light show. So, the song of the week. Oh, yeah. You know, and tonight, everybody was, you know, it's the annual Memorial Day. The Memorial Day cookout at my husband's cousin's house. All guys, you know, and they play cornhole and unfortunately his cousins, you know, keeping him in our thoughts, because his cousin, the one with the big bubba, the, you know, drinks from his big cup. I talked about him, I think it was last year or the year before. Yeah, so he's, you know, he's recuperating, and sending him wishes for recovery and healing. And so you know, but all the other guys were there, and they're playing the cornhole, and, you know, having the hot dogs and the hamburgers and hot dogs and burgers on the grill and everything. I didn't go, but you know, it's a guy event. It's kind of, you know, my husband's cousin. He's a Marine, former Marine, and, you know, he's a very disciplined person, and, you know, and that's him. That's, you know, how I look at that, you know, and I see someone who's been raised differently than I have, who has maybe different experiences of the world, but it's not bad. See, because he's looking at me and thinking, this brings me to the song of the week. But you know, he's just a few months younger than me. We're both Gen Xers. So at the same time that we're very different, and, you know, him being a guy, and, you know, me being, you know, female, and having, you know, just, but he's like 3 or 4 months younger than me. So all of that, you know, pop culture stuff that we grew up with is, you know, there's some overlap there. He's a drummer, so we're into music. So when I would talk to him, we'd talk about music and pop culture. And it, you know, oh yeah, I remember this song and that song, and he would get, you know, all of those, same with my husband, all those little nuances of having grown up throughout, you know, the late 60s as babies, early, you know, 70s and 80s as in school days, and 80s in college. Well, he didn't go to college till later. So, I mean, that was his experience. So we can really learn so much about other people if we just, you know, and I'm guilty of this, you know, of sitting up and sort of, you know, at certain times, I'd get stuck in an idea or a way of looking at things. It's got to go like this, but I'm letting go of that. That's something that's kind of held me back. When I'm, in certain environments, to my detriment, I start sinking into a particular way of looking. When I'm out, the less baggage I have, the more, I'm pretty good. I can pretty much go anywhere and be happy and, think, but I have to be careful that I don't get tied, I don't get tied down, and because then I'm one of those people. I tell it like it is, but then I'm the first person. I'm going to save your butt, but next month you're going to blame me. I'm going to get blamed for something. It's it's like that savior complex or whatever. The very person who, go, what did they do? I mean, the very person who heals people is, what did they do? He was brought here, Jesus, right? He was brought here to heal and save and set an example. And and part of his example was, that he got scapegoated. See, and that's how humanity has tended to do things. There's got to be a scapegoat, right? So anyway, that's just nothing serious there. You don't like it? Just let it go. That's just my perspective. I like to go up high and look. And what these are just meat suits. This is our human experience being reflected. And there's something moving down there. Anyway, there's something rustling in the woods over here. All right, I'm getting too much on my high horse. The song. This is perfect. Crazy by Seal. It came out. Oh my God. So he wrote it in 1990. And this is the perspective. Talk about all this crazy stuff. Tower of Babel. He wrote it after the Berlin Wall fell, right? Talk about a Tower of Babel. It was a big wall. It came down. There was tremendous change and optimism between 89 and 90, right? All these riots going, all these people rising up, walls coming down. I mean, my uncle was over. My uncle was in, what was it, around, I don't know, maybe it was the late 50s or early 60s. He was over in, was it Germany or Morocco? He was in Morocco for a while. I don't know, he went overseas and there was a lot of change, So in the 90s, I remember, that was when I was in grad school, and from 91, I graduated. Mid-June 91, it was 83 on the chart, number 83. It had come out in November of 90 on his first album, Seal. And then in 91, it stayed till the fall. 19 weeks it was on the Billboard, Seal. And then, so that was like his most successful song until Kiss from a Rose in 95, I think it was, knocked it off. But that was, Seal was, I love that song. Anything by Seal, it's so, his voice, it's so haunting. It's so, I don't know, it just gets me somehow. Anyway, so that's what, yeah. Now, it's summer of 91, it was one of those times. I packed. I got an offer to go work for there's a conglomerate. It's since kind of broken up, but in the Hartford area, they had just acquired an air conditioning company, major air conditioning, HVAC, a heating and cooling company, with headquarters up in Syracuse, New York, and it got sucked into the big, conglomerate that was headquartered, in Hartford, in Connecticut. So I had worked for the elevator company within where my dad worked, throughout college, and so I got to know, and I write about this in the book. I got to know krill Krill, I think his first name was, um, the president at the time of the elevator company, went over to become, right after I left to go back to grad school, he became president of the air conditioner company. And then, so when I graduated, I had an internship where I was presenting things and, got to know the top management. And then they asked me to go work on graduation with my MBA down in Miami because I spoke Spanish at the Latin American headquarters of this air conditioner company. I'm not going to say it. Everybody knows it. So I, I did, I just had a few things, threw a few things into a suitcase. They came, they picked up my Celica, my blue, my blue 1987 Celica. They drove it onto a truck, and I took the plane down. And when I got there, it was waiting for me, my car, and they gave me in a little apartment. And, and I worked down I was staying in the golf section. It was near the airport. I think it was called Doral. And so every day I'd go and work in the Latin American, headquarters and speaking, mostly English. And then, to me, it was boring. I go all the way down there and I think, oh yeah, I'm going to be meeting all these people speaking Spanish. There was just a bunch of, there was some French guy there and some other guy, and it was just like Lotus 1, 2, 3 spreadsheets. They had a little gym there with that lady with the buns of steel. I used to work out after work. I'd do workouts with that Tammy lady, with the blonde hair and her buns and her arms of steel, and that's where I got hooked on those. But so eventually I joined the Bally's gym, and I used to go there, and then I started going on trips on the weekend. And I remember this song. I drove myself. I just got in the car. I went down to the Keys. I said, when am I going to be here? I'm just going to the Keys. So one day I just got in the car. I drove from Miami down to the Key West and back. I didn't even get pie. Well, I did get some at the hotel when I first got to Miami. But anyway, yeah, because you got to have pie, right? And it was the real key lime. It wasn't that fake stuff you get it around when you go to the chain restaurants. It was real key lime. So anyway, I availed myself of all the cool, fun things in Miami. Well, not all of them. Took my rollerblades and went rollerblading on South Beach. And I see the Birdcage, that movie that came out, the Birdcage. And I was there. I was on that strip, where they go out at the end. We are family, that song. So I think, oh my God, I was right there. I went in some of those places. I was on the beach, I drive and go different beaches. I get tired of one place, I'd go somewhere else. I'd try different restaurants, and I would meet people, and it's just traveling alone, you can do that. And I wrote letters to my friends back home, because back then we still didn't really have email. Not reliable. We had, we were still using Lotus. This major company was still using Lotus. And I had all these ideas. At the end of the time, I put it all together, and I'm like, yeah, we can do this with Latin America and this. And I was thinking I was going to get to travel maybe, maybe go South America. But, well, anyway, I'll write about it. I'm going to save the rest of the story because inquiring minds want to know. And I know, but I'm not going to tell you the whole story. You're going to have to buy the next book if you want to hear it. So this is where my adventures come from. But anyway, but chaos, okay? So then I was down there, and I gave them a whole bunch of ideas. And long story short, I ended up, on a plane headed back home a little bit earlier than I anticipated. Drinking champagne, because it ended up being the first flight of Delta Airlines, I think, to Hartford from Miami. Or what was it, American? It might have been American. Or Delta, I don't know. But anyway, I got back home, and then I got rid of all that stuff because my mother wouldn't let me back in the house. She thought I had cockroaches in my suitcases, so she made me dump everything out on the patio. But anyway, I digress. heading for Gemini season. Anyway, without further ado, oh, I feel so much better now. Sometimes you gotta get a little crazy. Tower of Babel, like that tarot card. Anyway, before it starts blinking at me, I made some amazing shrimp linguine last night. So I'm gonna go home and see if there's any of that left. And with all the burgers and dog stuff, you know, get that out of the way and get my dinner and make a nice little salad. And I'll talk to you next week. So yeah, get a little crazy, you know, and I don't mean that in a you know, to disparage anybody. I just mean crazy and like a, you know, just let it go. Just do something different, you know, and good things will happen. Within, you know, don't take it too much, but just a little crazy. So, see you next week. Zazoo Plazz out. Bye-bye.